Greetings, friends. It is very good to be with you this morning. My guidance today was to talk to you about listening, which is kind of an oxymoron. But is it really? I mean, if we were in person, and I offered that last line, I know from past experience that at least a few folks in this room might have chuckled, and I would have been able to receive that input from you all, and it would have helped me settle into the rest of our time together. In-person communication is never a one-way street. We humans rely on each other for everything, especially communication, even when we're talking. And while I wish we could be together in person, I am grateful at least to have been invited into your homes to share a message today. As always, I have attempted to quiet my heart and soul enough to hear the message that I think the individual members of this community, and maybe this community as a whole, might need to hear at this time, at this pivotal moment in human history. As I begin to move forward in the early days of my ministerial career, and as I work to listen deeply and honestly to the still, small voice bubbling up from my soul, there is one truth that keeps coming back to me over and over again. And that truth for me is that as much as folks might come here looking for comfort, in the long run, I am doing no one any good if I don't have the courage to offer honest assessments of the challenges we face and seek to propose real solutions that folks can consider adopting to help us all navigate these challenges together. The good news is because I'm a minister, and because my playbook is faith and religion, the solutions available in my toolkit are usually designed to offer both strength and comfort, all at the same time. Now look, I know that 2020 in general has been a disaster, but let's face it, nothing we've experienced in the last 9 months emerged suddenly out of the blue without any warning. The pandemic, the West Coast wildfires, the civil unrest, the seeds of these outcomes were planted long ago. And although a small group of humanity has been trying to sound the alarm that these problems were inevitable if we didn't learn to change our ways, here we are today. Sequestered and social distanced in our home, breathing smoke from burning forests, and squirming through several painful debates or separate town halls or whatever between the two men we're supposed to put our trust in to lead us out of the messes we lived ourselves into. I don't know about you, but I think it's about time to listen to some new voices and to consider some new ways forward. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. Before we consider new solutions, though, I think there's value in spending just a bit of time considering what hasn't been working, so we can try to avoid continuing down the same paths we've been on, just packaged in a new way, with a new campaign, with a new marketing budget, and a new cast of characters leading us once again in the wrong direction. I don't think the first one on my list will surprise anyone too much, but I think the second one might. The first thing I think we need to look at is capitalism. That kind of is not a big surprise. There's issues there. But the second one is our Unitarian Universalist focused on social justice initiatives. And I'm going to talk about maybe a slightly different way forward to think about in our time today. First of all, capitalism. I've listened to some that are basically saying, keep the current system, but rebalance it. Others say, keep the current system, but redistribute the wealth better. I've heard, keep the current system, but use technology to counteract the damage our never-ending consumption is having on the planet. I've listened to others still say, instead, we have to tear down the whole system, it's beyond repair. What I haven't heard yet from that group is a clear plan about what to replace it with that enough people will get on board with and agree to take the risks needed for implementation. So the tear it down solution, while tempting, sounds a little scary to me. But as I look around, It feels like we're all working hard to keep our heads above water. We all see these big problems in the world, and many of us feel guilty at some level that we can't do more to help. And then we give more than we really feel like we have available, because the system we are swimming in is designed to keep us running faster than a healthy human should have to run. And then we find that we have nothing left to give. We wonder if our efforts at social justice can ever truly amount to enough to make a meaningful difference to the problems we see. Now, if we're good UUs, we've learned to heed the guidance from our faith and adopt and rely upon consistent spiritual practices for nourishment and replenishment. But if we're really honest with ourselves, I think it's accurate to say that most of us are getting more and more tired and feeling like our heroic efforts to right the wrongs of this world are more and more hopeless. Thanks, Matt. I didn't feel badly enough this morning. You've really lifted my spirits. Well, hold on. Here's my pivot. Religion is a survival mechanism. And our chosen religion, Unitarian Universalism, is unique amongst faith traditions in that it has a few really unique and valuable design features. First, it reminds us that we know our ancestors ultimately must have gotten some things right because we are here today. It reminds us to listen to wisdom that has been passed down through the ages. Second, it challenges us with a responsibility to find our own best ways forward. And finally, it challenges us to learn how to come together and share those truths. And through the democratic process, change our focus if we collectively begin to realize that what we thought was true yesterday turns out to be not quite right today. As a result of this, our faith has been trying over the past several decades to expand the circle of voices that we listen to, learning how to develop trust with formerly marginalized communities, learning how to lift up new voices, voices that have learned how to survive on the margins because they were not included in the abundance. We've been learning how to be in relationship with others. It's not always been easy. Many mistakes have been made along the way and continue to be made to this day, but we're working on it. And this work is beginning to bear fruit. My training has taught me to seek out the answers to the challenges I see from leaders in these other communities. And as I seek to listen to the voices from different backgrounds than my own, I am hearing new strategies and new perspectives that give me hope and reminders that there are different ways of being in this world than the dead-end ones that I've been led to believe were the only possible ways forward, because these ways form the water that I was born into. And it seemed unthinkable to consider any other ways to survive than to just kick as hard as I could and keep swimming. Sometimes, though, the solutions we need really don't need to be all that complex. As I told my panicking daughter after her kayak flipped on the river this summer and she was sure she was drowning, just stand up, my beloved. The water isn't nearly as deep as you think it is. My latest searching has led me to discover the work of Adrian Marie Brown. Adrian Marie Brown is an author, an activist, a social justice facilitator, and a healer whose work has informed large portions of the thinking behind both the Black Lives Matter and Occupy Wall Street movements. I'll say her name again because I want everyone listening to my words to seek out her work if she isn't already in your view. Adrian Marie Brown. I've just been turned on to Adrian's work, and I am gobsmacked. She has danced along many of the same trails that I have traveled, but she has connected so many dots that I've been struggling to connect that I am only halfway through her book, Emergent Strategies, and I can already see my whole theology coming into better focus. It's powerful stuff. I don't even know where to begin. I was instantly drawn to her thoughts because, like me, she listens to the lessons of nature to find solutions needed to heal our broken human systems. She draws a good bit of wisdom from Margaret Wheatley's studies in leadership, which is also based in science and nature. Quantum physics, biology, chaos theory. Time and again, everything nature accomplishes comes down to relationships. Critical connections are essential. I'll say that again. Everything nature accomplishes comes down to relationships. Brown studied the brilliant Black science fiction writer Octavia Butler, who says, all successful life is fractal. A fractal is a never-ending pattern that repeats itself at different scales. And although fractals appear complex, they are made of simple, repeating processes. Our whole universe is made up of patterns, which can be expressed in math and converted to images with infinite levels that just keep going down and down and down. Simple little repeating patterns can become infinite. We see this small to big perspective everywhere in nature. The branches of trees look like the branches of our circulatory system, which look like the patterns of rivers when viewed from high above. The pattern of a hurricane is the same as a spiral seashell, which is the same as a spiral galaxy. The world under a microscope looks the same as the universe through the telescope. These are the laws of nature. The large mimics the small every time. Brown's emergent strategy shows us how we can be fractal in our organizing and in our leadership. We are all individual fractals of a larger dream. Our homes are fractals that combine to make up our neighborhoods. Our churches are fractals of larger communities, and our communities are interconnected to form the larger society. So the question this concept begs is the following. How can we ever hope to have peace and tranquility in the larger world if we don't have those things first in ourselves, and then in our families, and then in our communities? Brown looks at nature and offers examples for us to draw from as we consider how we might move forward together more like nature does. Think of the concept, you may not have heard this word, but think of the concept of murmuration. Murmuration is when you've seen those flocks of birds that all just sort of like dance and weave and bob like this, and they all just seem to know and move like exactly the same way. It's beautiful. Each bird in a flock like this focuses on its 7 closest neighbors, thus developing cohesiveness and synchronicity within the larger flock. Small fish do this too, swimming together with synchronicity that protects each individual from the larger predators. Brown says, my dream is of a movement with such deep trust that we move as a murmuration, the way groups of starlings billow, dive, spin, and dance collectively through the air to avoid predators, and also, it seems, to pass time in the most beautiful way possible. Can you imagine? In nature, everything works in collaboration. Hummingbirds and flowers are in such deep coordination that they need each other for their survival. How vibrant and alive and successful could our movement be if we learned to rely on each other in such a completely intertwined way? Maybe it's less of a learning than a remembering what we seem to have forgotten. Brown says, small is good, small is all. Because remember again, the large is a reflection of the small. This is really good news. You don't have to worry about saving the whole world. This strategy encourages us to start local. Think about it. That's the level where nature always does her work. Why would we think we need to attend to anything beyond that? Brown implores us to focus on critical connections more than critical mass. We build resilience by building relationships. What you pay attention to grows. What then should we do? First, learn to find your own balance. And luckily, our faith tradition offers plenty of paths for you to explore. And then, quite simply, make sure that your neighbors are taken care of. And I don't just mean checking on someone when they're recovering from an illness. I propose what our society really needs to heal itself is a radical return to loving community. The same process that ensured our survival as a species to this point. Can you imagine if everyone in this community took personal responsibility to ensure the complete health and well-being of just 7 other folks in this community, just like the birds in that murmuration? Can you imagine if everyone here took on the role of hummingbird or flower for just a small group of their neighbors? If one had significant wealth or access to resources and committed to being in life-sustaining relationship with a small group of folks in their communities, and another had less access, but had learned through grit and determination how to find contentment with less, and could share those lessons for the benefit of those that had more. If someone had technology skills and could help someone in their group better connect with others online while we have to be apart, and another knew a skill like baking cookies or how to knit a scarf and could share that skill with another. I know from experience that there are folks in this very community that are struggling to put food on their table. I know from experience that there are folks struggling with loneliness. I know for a fact that there are folks here that think they have nothing of value to share with the group. And I also know from experience that there are folks here that look at some others and can't imagine that they could have anything of value to add to their lives. And here is where the place where our faith reminds us to look at the ancient wisdom. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Love your neighbor as yourself. These are not just nice bumper stickers. These were survival lessons that were passed down from our ancestors. These are the messages that have been drowned out by the gods of capitalism. These are the lessons that form the foundations of the communities that survived. Now look, I'm not saying this will be easy or initially comfortable. Capitalism has separated us all, made us believe that we need to rely on no one but ourselves, that everyone is our competition, and that if we have acquired the means, then all of our needs can be provided for by outsourcing. What I'm suggesting would initially feel really messy. You might have to spend time with folks you might initially wish you didn't have to. If you have wealth, you might need to share more of it than initially feels comfortable. But honestly, do you feel comfortable now with the way things are? My experience of making this transition is that the comfort provided by the current model is never really comfortable. We know that there is something wrong with the system that is supporting us, but we double down on the false comforts it provides as we seek to ignore the parts that we wish just didn't exist. And it can't just be the extroverts, the natural connectors doing the work. We all need to turn towards each other to both offer and accept support from our neighbors in this work. And I can't even tell you exactly what it looks like. The theologians I've introduced to you invoke chaos theory and remind us that nature succeeds in messy ways through trial and error until it finds a way that works. Maybe instead of being like the birds in a murmuration, it's not paying close attention to 7 of your neighbors. Maybe in human systems, the number is 2 or 10. I don't know. The process to find out is as nature does through experimentation. But here's the beauty of the approach that I am proposing to you this morning. You don't need to feel like you need to try and save the whole world. If you simply put your faith and all of your efforts into this one strategy. Can you imagine what would happen if 12 months from now, we all practice this version of collective neighborly support? Can you imagine how much stronger everyone in this community would be? And can you imagine how compelling that story would sound to every new person that came into contact with a member of this community? It would sound something like, wait, you're a part of a community where every single person is cared for and has everything they need to feel safe and secured and loved? How do I become a part of that community? And if a community like that one spread, and all UU communities began to focus on that radical mutual support, and they all started to expand, how long would it be until the smallest unit of the fractal, the individual that committed to balance for self, who then committed to support balance in their own community, how long until the majority of our society began to be grounded in balance and life and collective salvation, as opposed to the greed and extraction and zero-sum outcomes of the capitalist game? Imagine. Today, we might feel like we are drowning. Could our salvation really be so simple as just standing up where we are and deciding to just take care of those around us? There is so much work to do. Get engaged. Simply commit to grounding yourself the best you can, and then commit to helping each other out just a little bit more than you are right now. By doing that, you might just end up helping to heal the whole world. Blessed be, and may it be so.